What is mercy in the Bible?
Welcome.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are just so glad that you have decided to join us today.
We really are.
The world outside is loud, it's fast,
Yeah.
it is just endlessly demanding of your attention.
Constantly.
Right. But right now, we're inviting you to simply slow down.
Take a deep breath.
Exactly. Take a breath. We are going to explore something truly profound today, and our pace is going to be deliberately slow. Unrushed.
There's no hurry here.
None at all. We want you to feel completely at ease as we walk through this material together. We're looking at a topic that, it touches the very core of the human experience.
And the absolute foundation of faith.
Yes. So we ask again, what is mercy in the Bible?
It is a question that feels so familiar, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, we hear that word used all the time.
Right. In courtrooms and movies.
Casual conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when we truly begin to look at the source document we have before us today, we find that it is this staggeringly complex, multidimensional reality.
It really is.
It's so much more than just a passing feeling of pity or, a momentary softening of the heart.
Right. It's not just an emotion.
No. It is the structural framework of how a wholly perfect creator interacts with a fractured, hurting creation.
Wow.
So our mission for this deep dive is to gently guide you through this incredible material. We want to uncover the beautiful, awe-inspiring depths of God's compassionate heart.
And to make sure you know exactly where we are heading on this journey, let me outline the 5 specific things you are going to learn today.
A roadmap is always good.
Definitely. First, we will uncover the simple foundational meaning of mercy.
Which is key.
Right. Second, we're going to learn the crucial difference between mercy and grace, because they are distinct.
Very distinct.
Third, we will explore the beautiful, rich, original Hebrew and Greek words used in the biblical text to give us a sort of multicolored picture of this concept.
The language is just gorgeous.
It is. Fourth, we are going to bring these ancient concepts to life through powerful Bible stories and modern story-like illustrations.
To really ground it for you.
Exactly. And finally, fifth, we will discuss exactly how you can practically apply this divine mercy in your own daily life.
That is a wonderful roadmap.
Thank you.
And honestly, to lay a solid foundation, we really have to start with your second point. We must distinguish between grace and mercy from the very outset.
It's a common confusion.
It is. Whether you are opening the Bible for the very first time or you've been studying it for decades, it is incredibly common to blend these two concepts together.
People use them interchangeably.
All the time. But you can think of them as sisters.
Sisters, I like that.
Yeah, they travel together, they are deeply intertwined, but they have very different specific roles in how God interacts with humanity.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to build a picture in our minds to really separate these two ideas for you.
Let's do it.
Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing in a grand courtroom.
Okay.
The ceilings are vaulted, the wood paneling is dark and imposing, and the atmosphere in the room is incredibly heavy.
You can feel the weight of it.
Yeah. You really can. You are standing before the judge's bench. The evidence against you has just been presented, and there is no ambiguity.
It's clear cut.
It is undeniably clear.
Yeah.
The verdict has been read. You are guilty.
A heavy word.
Very. You have broken the law, and the legally mandated sentence is an astronomical fine.
Like unpayable.
Exactly. A fine so massive you could never pay it in 100 lifetimes. Or, alternatively, a very long, bleak sentence in a maximum security prison.
It's a hopeless situation.
Completely.
Yeah.
You are standing there, your hands trembling, completely ashamed and terrified.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the judge's gavel to fall and seal your fate.
The tension in that room would be suffocating.
Yeah.
And importantly, you can feel the weight of justice hanging in the air.
Because it's fair.
Right.
Yeah.
You have earned this punishment, the law is clear, your actions are clear, and the impending sentence is entirely fair.
It's the sheer inevitability of it. But then, something absolutely shocking happens.
What happens?
The judge looks down at you from the high bench, but the look in his eyes isn't anger. It isn't vindictiveness.
Okay.
He looks at you with a deep, profound pity.
Wow.
He doesn't dismiss the case. I mean, he can't do that. The law was still broken.
Right. Justice still matters.
Exactly. He doesn't pretend the evidence doesn't exist. Instead, he stands up.
Okay.
He takes off his heavy judicial robes, folding them over the chair. He steps down from the high bench, walks across the polished floor, and stands right beside you.
Right down on your level.
Yes. He reaches into his own pocket, pulls out his own wealth, and pays that enormous fine to the court on your behalf.
That's incredible.
He turns to you and says, The penalty is paid. You are free to go.
And right there, in that moment, we see the distinct beauty of the first sister gift.
Mercy.
Yes. Mercy is the judge looking at you and saying, you do not have to go to prison.
He withholds the punishment.
Exactly. He withholds the just punishment that you rightfully deserved.
Yeah.
He looks at your misery, he looks at your guilt, and his heart is moved with compassion to spare you the agony of the penalty.
So that's mercy.
That is the purest definition of mercy, withholding the negative outcome that you earned.
But the judge doesn't stop there. He doesn't just point you toward the courtroom door and say goodbye.
No, he goes further.
Grace is the judge then turning to you and saying, not only are you free from the prison sentence, but I am legally adopting you as my own child.
Adopting you.
Yes. I am giving you a permanent place in my home, a seat at my dining table, and a full equal share in all of my wealth and inheritance.
That is grace.
Grace is bestowing upon you wonderful, unearned blessings that you could never have imagined, let alone deserved.
That distinction is paramount for you to understand.
It really is.
You contributed absolutely nothing to either of those gifts.
Not a thing.
You did not earn the freedom from the prison sentence. Your guilt was established.
Right.
And you certainly did not earn the adoption papers or the inheritance.
No.
Both were pure, unadulterated gifts flowing out of the character of the judge. Mercy withheld the punishment. Grace delivered the unearned blessing.
I love how clear that makes it. With that foundation laid, let's step into the first major section of our deep dive today.
This part is especially for those of you who might be new to the Bible.
Exactly. We want to start by looking at the very building blocks of the biblical text to understand how this compassion is described. So let's look at the original language.
The roots.
Right. How did the ancient writers actually articulate this idea?
To truly grasp the depth of what we are talking about, we have to look past our modern English vocabulary.
English is a bit limited here.
It is functional, but the original writers of the Bible used very specific Hebrew and Greek words that carry immense weight.
Different shades of meaning.
Exactly. You can think of these ancient words as different, vibrant shades of a single beautiful color.
Okay.
In the Old Testament, which was written primarily in Hebrew, there is a massive foundational word, chesed.
Cheesed. It sounds almost weighty just saying it. What does it actually encompass?
It is an incredibly dense word. It is often translated in our English Bibles as loving kindness or steadfast love.
Or loyal love. Right.
It's loyal love, but even those hyphenated words struggle to capture it. Chesed speaks of a faithful, unconditional love that is tied to a promise.
Tied to a promise.
It is a love that holds onto its people even when they make terrible, destructive mistakes.
Right.
If you were to summarize chesed into a single sentence, it would be the love that says to you, I will never, ever let you go because I have promised to be yours.
That brings a tremendous sense of security for you as a listener.
It's absolutely unshakable.
But the outline of our source material highlights another Hebrew word that brings a completely different texture to the concept. It moves from that strong covenantal loyalty to something much more visceral.
Yes, the word is rachamim.
Rachamim.
And what's fascinating here is the root of the word itself.
This is the root.
Rachamim is intrinsically related to the Hebrew word for womb.
Racham.
Womb. That's so intimate.
It is. So it describes a deep, tender, gut-level, maternal compassion.
To the mother's love. Exactly. It is the intense, protective, overwhelming surge of love that a mother feels for the newborn baby she is holding against her chest.
That paints such a beautiful picture.
It shows us that God's mercy is not some distant, cold, legal transaction happening in a cosmic ledger.
Right, it's not just paperwork.
No. It is deeply personal.
Yeah.
It is profoundly, intimately emotional.
And as the biblical narrative moves forward into the New Testament, which was written in Greek, we encounter another word entirely, Eleos.
Eleos.
This becomes the primary word used for mercy in the later texts, and it perfectly bridges the gap between feeling and doing.
How so?
Well, Eleos is compassion in action.
Action.
Yes. When people in the ancient world were desperate, when they were sick, broken, or cast out by society, and they cried out to Jesus saying, Lord, have mercy on us.
This is the word they use.
Exactly. This was the word they shouted, Eleos. It is a love that doesn't just feel pity from a distance, but actively reaches out its hands to pull people out of profound distress.
It does something about the pain. To really help you visualize that gut-level maternal mercy of Rachamim we discussed a moment ago, we need to think about it in modern human terms.
Let me share a story that brings this ancient Hebrew concept right into our living rooms.
Please do.
Imagine a mother and her teenage daughter. The relationship has completely fractured.
Just broken.
Broken. The daughter has rebelled against every boundary. She has broken every rule in the house. And on the night she finally left, she screamed the most deeply hurtful, personal insults imaginable at her mother.
Just trying to cause pain.
Exactly. She packed a bag and chose a very dark, dangerous path out in the world. The mother is left behind in a quiet house, utterly heartbroken.
The worst kind of pain.
Weeks turn into months.
Yeah.
She spends every single night awake, pacing the floorboards, staring out the window, praying, worrying.
She doesn't know where her daughter is.
She doesn't know if she is safe. She doesn't know if she's warm or if she even has anything to eat.
The sheer anxiety and the psychological pain of that mother would be unbearable.
And we have to remember, she has been entirely wronged.
Completely wronged.
Yeah.
Then, one night, a massive storm rolls in.
Okay.
It is freezing cold. The rain is pouring down in sheets. At 2 a.m, there is a very quiet, hesitant knock at the front door.
Oh, wow.
The mother's heart stops. She rushes to the entryway and pulls open the door. And there is her daughter.
Standing there in the storm.
Standing on the porch, soaked to the bone, shivering violently, with mascara and rain and tears streaming down her face.
She must look so defeated.
She looks exhausted. She looks scared. She is completely overwhelmed by the shame of what she has done.
Yeah.
The daughter hangs her head, unable to even make eye contact, and barely whispers, "Mom, I'm so sorry."
Now, let's pause and analyze the mother's reaction in that split second.
Right. What does she do?
What's fascinating here is by every standard of human fairness, she has the right to fold her arms and say, "I told you so."
She totally has that right.
She has the right to stand in the doorway, blocking the entrance, and demand a comprehensive list of apologies. A full explanation.
She could require a 10-point plan for behavioral restitution before she even reaches for the handle of the screen door.
But she doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
Her gut-level love, that maternal Rachamim, takes over instantly, overriding any sense of pride or demand for justice.
It just bypasses all the logic.
It does. She doesn't see the rebellion in that moment. She sees her precious, freezing, hurting child.
Yeah.
She throws the door wide open, steps out into the cold, wraps her arms tightly around that shivering girl, and pulls her into the warmth of the house.
That is just beautiful.
The daughter didn't earn that warm embrace. She had actively disqualified herself from it.
Completely disqualified.
But the mother's deep, merciful love provided it anyway. That is the exact, breathtaking picture of God's heart toward the helpless and the guilty.
It is a profound illustration of the emotional reality of mercy.
It really is.
And to continue building our understanding, especially cementing the distinction between grace and mercy, our source text offers another beautiful narrative for you to consider.
What's that one?
The story of the 2 beggars.
Let's set the scene for this one.
Picture 2 beggars. They are sitting in the dust outside the massive, heavy iron gates of a great king's palace.
Okay, I can see it.
They are both terribly poor, they are sick, and they are dressed in filthy rags.
Just desperate.
And according to the strict laws of this kingdom, beggars are absolutely forbidden from being anywhere near the palace, let alone inside the city walls.
So they are breaking the law just by being there.
Exactly. They are total outcasts, living on the very margins of society, constantly in fear of the palace guards.
Right.
One afternoon, the king, who is known far and wide for his unusual compassion, walks out of the gate for a journey.
Okay.
He immediately spots them sitting in the dirt. His heart is moved with pity.
So he approaches them.
He approaches the first beggar. Now, this beggar sees the royal procession coming and shrinks back against the stone wall.
Terrified.
He hangs his head, trembling, fully expecting to be scolded, beaten, or dragged off to a dungeon by the guards for loitering near the king's residence.
Which would be justice in that kingdom.
Exactly. But the king walks right past the guards, gently touches the beggar's shoulder, and says, "My friend, I see your misery.
Wow.
The law clearly states that you must be punished for being here, but I have the supreme authority to pardon you."
The pardon.
Yes. He says, "I am not going to enforce the law against you. You are completely free to go, and I decree that no one will ever punish you for being a beggar again."
That interaction is pure mercy.
Pure mercy.
The king withheld the punishment, being beaten or imprisoned, that the beggar legally deserved under the laws of the land.
That's right.
Then the king turns and walks up to the second beggar.
And what happens?
This man also expects the worst. He's cowering in the dust. But the king looks at him and says, "My friend, I am not going to just pardon you."
He goes a step further.
A huge step. He says, I'm going to bring you inside my palace walls. My servants are going to wash you. They will clothe you in fine royal linen, and they will give you a permanent place at my own royal table. You will eat my food, drink my wine, and live as one of my beloved children from this day forward.
And there we see the transition into grace.
Exactly.
The king gave the second beggar wonderful, unimaginably lavish gifts, a complete transformation of his status, his identity, and his future.
It's a total rewrite of his life.
It is. And as believers reading the Bible, we are positioned like that second beggar.
We really are.
Through Jesus, God not only withholds the terrible punishment we deserve for our rebellion, which is the ultimate mercy, but he also welcomes us into his own family.
He gives us a seat at the table.
He gives us a completely new royal identity and promises us an eternal inheritance. That is the staggering reality of grace.
I want to look at how Jesus himself taught these concepts, because he was the absolute master of using stories to explain the heart of God.
He really was.
He told a parable that perfectly captures both the maternal compassion we talked about earlier and the distinction between grace and mercy.
Oh, the prodigal son.
Yes, the parable of the prodigal son found in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15.
Such a famous story.
It is perhaps one of those famous stories in human history, but let's look at it through this specific lens today.
The setup of the story is incredibly shocking for an ancient audience.
Very shocking.
A young man approaches his wealthy father and demands his share of the inheritance early.
Which you just didn't do.
No. In that ancient Middle Eastern culture, an inheritance was only distributed after the father died.
Right.
So the son is essentially looking his father in the eye and saying, I value your money, but I am tired of waiting for you to die. I wish you were dead.
It is the ultimate betrayal, a deeply public shaming of a loving father.
It really is.
But the father, amazingly, grants the request. The son takes the money, travels to a faraway country, and wastes every single penny on wild, reckless living.
Just squanders it.
All of it.
Yeah.
He buys friends, he buys pleasure, and it's gone. Eventually, a severe famine hits that land.
And he has nothing left.
Nothing. The money dries up, the fair weather friends vanish, and he hits absolute rock bottom. He finds himself feeding pigs to survive.
We have to understand how devastating that detail is for you to really grasp the story.
Why is that so devastating?
For a Jewish boy in the ancient world, pigs were ritually unclean.
Unclean.
Being forced to feed them was the ultimate state of societal and spiritual degradation.
He is so starving that he actually longs to eat the filthy, empty husks the pigs are eating.
But no one gives him anything.
Finally, sitting in the mud, the text says he comes to his senses.
He wakes up.
He decides to go home. But he knows he has forfeited his right to be a son.
Logically, yes.
So he rehearses a speech. He plans to trudge back, face his father, and beg to just be hired as a day laborer.
To work off the debt.
Right. He knows, logically and legally, he is completely unworthy to ever step foot in the family house again.
He has the logic of justice worked out perfectly in his head.
He does.
But the father's reaction shatters all logic.
It really does.
As the son is walking down the dusty road, still a long way off, the father sees him.
Which implies he was looking for him.
This implies the father had been watching the horizon every single day.
He was waiting.
Yes. And the father runs to him.
Runs.
Again, the cultural context is crucial here.
Explain that for us.
In that ancient culture, an elderly, respected patriarch wearing long robes would never run.
This is undignified.
Exactly. It required pulling up his garments, exposing his legs, and splinting. It was considered entirely undignified, even shameful.
But he does it anyway.
Because his compassion overrides his dignity.
Wow.
He runs, throws his arms around his filthy, pig-smelling son, and kisses him.
The son tries to get his rehearsed speech out. He starts, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.
He's trying to get it all out.
But the father literally interrupts him. He doesn't even let him finish the transaction he had planned.
He stops him mid-sentence.
He shouts to the servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate.
Let's map out the theology happening in this beautiful reunion for you.
Let's do it.
The father does not disown him.
No.
He does not punish him. He does not even accept the son's offer to work as a slave to pay off the debt.
Right. He ignores the speech.
He withholds the punishment and the isolation that the son clearly, undeniably earned.
That is the mercy.
That is the mercy, but then look at what he gives him.
The gifts.
He gives him the best robe, which restores his honor in the community, gives him the family signet ring, which restores his financial and familial authority. And he throws a lavish feast, restoring the joy and public celebration of their relationship.
The son deserved absolutely none of those things.
Not a single one.
That is the overflowing reality of grace.
It paints such a vivid picture.
It does. But as we continue to explore the biblical text, we find that these aren't just parables or hypothetical illustrations.
No, this is lived history.
We see actual historical accounts of mercy playing out in the dust and dirt of human history.
Real people.
Let's look at a true story from the Old Testament, the account of King David and King Saul, found in 1 Samuel chapter 24.
The context here is intense.
Very intense.
King Saul is the reigning monarch, but he is consumed by paranoia.
And jealousy.
A bitter, venomous jealousy toward David, who has been anointed as the future king.
Saul is actively hunting him.
Actively hunting David across the wilderness with a professional army,
Right.
fully intending to murder him and eliminate the threat to his throne.
David and his small band of loyal men are exhausted. They're running for their lives.
Just hiding.
They are hiding in the pitch black of a deep, cavernous cave in the region of En-Gedi.
En-Gedi, right.
Suddenly, by complete surprise, King Saul walks into that very same cave, entirely alone to relieve himself.
Oh, wow.
He is completely vulnerable. The bright sunlight outside means his eyes haven't adjusted to the dark. He has absolutely no idea. David and his armed men are sitting quietly in the shadows just feet away.
You can imagine the adrenaline surging in that cave.
It must have been wild.
David's men are whispering to him in the dark. They are saying, "This is it. This is your moment. God has handed your mortal enemy right to you."
They see it as a gift.
And honestly, by every standard of ancient human warfare, politics, and justice, David had the absolute right to strike.
Saul was trying to kill him.
He was actively trying to kill him. It would have been justifiable self-defense and a swift end to years of running.
The tension is incredible.
What does David do?
David creeps forward in the dark, sword in hand. But instead of striking the king, he simply cuts off a small corner of Saul's royal robe.
He just cuts the fabric.
He stops. He refuses to harm him.
That takes so much restraint.
After Saul finishes and leaves the cave, walking back out into the sunlight, David steps out. He calls out to his enemy and holds up a piece of cloth.
Proving he was there.
He bows low to the ground, showing honor to the man trying to kill him, and says, "I could have killed you, but I spared you. I will not harm you, even though you are hunting me to take my life."
The analysis of this historical event is crucial for understanding how biblical mercy operates in the real world.
How so?
Mercy means choosing not to harm someone, even when you have every human right, every logical reason, and the perfect handed to you opportunity to do so.
David had the sword.
He had the sword, he had the motive, and he had the backing of his men.
Right.
But he left justice in God's hands and actively chose the path of mercy.
We see this same active, barrier-breaking compassion in the New Testament as well.
Oh, yes.
Consider the story in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 15, the story of the Canaanite woman.
This is a fascinating narrative because it deals with societal boundaries.
Right.
This woman is a Canaanite.
Which means she's an outsider.
She is an outsider, a Gentile, historically an enemy of Israel. She is not part of God's chosen covenant people.
But she approaches Jesus.
But she comes to Jesus in a state of absolute heartbreaking desperation, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession."
And Jesus' initial response is often startling to people reading it for the first time.
It can be hard to read.
He seems to completely ignore her.
Yeah.
His disciples are annoyed. They actively urge Jesus to send her away because she is crying out after them and making a scene.
It's being loud.
When Jesus finally does speak to her, he presents a massive cultural barrier.
What does he say?
He says, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs."
That sounds so harsh to our modern ears.
It does. He is testing her faith, articulating the profound cultural and religious division that existed between the Jewish Messiah and the Gentile world.
Most people would have been deeply offended by that interaction.
Absolutely.
They would have stormed off in pride, muttering about how rude he was, or they would have shrunk away in utter shame and defeat.
But she doesn't do either.
No.
She humbly accepts her status as an outsider. She doesn't argue for her own worthiness.
He doesn't defend her pride.
But she absolutely refuses to give up on his mercy. She looks at him and says, "Yes, it is, Lord. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table."
It is such a brilliant, humble, faith-filled response.
And Jesus is deeply moved by it.
He honors her incredible faith. He grants her request, and her daughter is healed that very hour.
This narrative raises a vital point about how we approach God.
It really does.
Mercy isn't something you earn by having the right religious background, the correct theological pedigree, or by being deemed culturally worthy or clean.
No. Mercy honors desperate, humble faith.
Humble faith.
It is a gift available to anyone, no matter their background, who recognizes their absolute need and cries out for it.
These ancient texts are just so deeply beautiful.
They are.
They really reframe how we see the character of God and how he views humanity. We're going to dive into some of the deeper, more complex waters of this text in just a moment.
We are going a bit deeper now.
Yes, but before we do, we want to pause. If you are finding value in this deep dive, if this picture of a compassionate God is encouraging you today, we invite you to share this audio with a friend who might need to hear about this kind of unconditional love.
Share it with someone who needs it.
And please, subscribe to the platform so we can keep learning and exploring these rich truths together.
Yes. We truly want to take a moment to thank you for spending this time with us today.
Thank you so much.
And we want to encourage you in your walk with Christ.
We really do.
Life is incredibly busy, and taking the time out of your schedule to study God's Word slowly, thoughtfully, and deliberately like this is a beautiful act of devotion.
It really is.
Now, as we move into the second half of our discussion, we want to shift gears slightly.
Right, this is for the mature Bible believer.
We want to explore the deeper structural, ethical, and theological layers of the biblical text regarding mercy.
Unpacking the complex realities.
Exactly. This part of our journey will unpack some of the more complex realities of how mercy operates on a cosmic scale.
To do that effectively, we need to return to the etymology, the history of the words themselves.
Yes. English is a wonderful utilitarian language, but it tends to collapse many rich, distinct concepts into a single word.
It flattens things out.
When we say mercy in English, we are actually flattening out a highly complex topography of ancient thought.
Well, let's expand on those ancient thoughts. How deep do these original words go?
We mentioned Chesed earlier.
Right, loyal love.
For a deeper study, it is helpful to understand Chesed as the masculine side of divine love.
Masculine side.
It is stable, it is covenantal, it is legally faithful.
No rock.
Exactly. It is the unshakable commitment of a sovereign ruler who will absolutely not break his oath.
Okay.
Conversely, Rachamim is the feminine side.
The maternal side.
It is visceral, it is maternal, it is the churning of a stomach in pity. But the Hebrew text gives us another essential term, hanan.
Hanan.
Yeah.
How does that differ from the loyal love of Chesed or the maternal love of Rachamim?
Hanan emphasizes sovereign, unmerited kindness. It is the specific posture of a superior bowing down to an inferior to grant a request.
Bowing down.
Yes, it highlights the vast difference in status. It reminds us that the recipient has absolutely no claim, no right, and no leverage on the giver.
That's a beautiful image of God stooping down to us.
Moving forward to the Greek, we discussed Eleos.
Compassion in action.
In classical non-biblical Greek, Eleos was often used to describe pity for someone who was suffering unjustly, like a victim of a natural disaster.
Someone who didn't deserve it.
Right. But the early Christians radically expanded the use of this word.
How so?
They used it to describe helping those whose suffering was entirely their own fault.
That is a massive shift in how the world viewed compassion.
It was revolutionary.
Wow.
Some early church traditions even linked the linguistic root of eleos to the Greek word for oil.
Oil. Like anointing oil.
Or medicinal oil. They pictured mercy as a soothing medicinal oil poured generously over the deep wounds of the afflicted.
And the beauty of the language journey doesn't stop there. The Latin tradition eventually gave us the word misericordia.
Yes, and the breakdown of that Latin word is incredibly poetic.
Break it down for us.
Misericordia is a compound word. It joins miser, which means wretched, miserable, or afflicted, with cor, which means heart.
Miserable heart.
So to show mercy is to literally have a miserable heart for the pain of others.
That is profound.
It means refusing to remain detached. It means allowing the suffering of another human being to cross the boundary and enter your own chest.
A miserable heart for the pain of others. I want to bring this down to the pavement with an everyday illustration for you.
A modern scenario.
Well, let's look at a modern scenario to see how justice, mercy, and grace interact. So what does this all mean? Let's talk about the speeding ticket.
Oh, this is a good one.
Imagine you are driving through a school zone.
Okay.
You are distracted, you are stressed about work, you are going way over the posted speed limit, and suddenly you see the flashing red and blue lights in your rearview mirror.
The sinking feeling.
Exactly. The police officer pulls you over, walks up to your window, and asks for your license and registration.
In this highly relatable scenario, we can define the three concepts perfectly.
Start with justice.
Justice is the foundational moral and legal law of the community. You broke the law in the school zone, endangering others.
Right.
Justice is the officer handing you the ticket and the heavy financial fine that comes with it. It is exactly what you earned.
But let's say the officer comes back to your window, looks at your clean driving record, sees that you are genuinely remorseful and shaken up, and decides to just give you a stern verbal warning.
That is mercy.
That's mercy. You undeniably deserve the ticket, but the authority figure chose to withhold the punishment.
Grace. How does grace enter that scenario?
Well, grace would be the officer withholding the ticket, putting away his pen, and then reaching into his own pocket and handing you a $50 gift certificate to a nice restaurant down the street.
Just handing it to you.
And telling you to have a safe and wonderful day.
It goes completely beyond withholding the negative consequence.
It bestows an entirely unearned, unexpected positive blessing.
It is almost jarring to imagine that happening, which shows just how radical grace really is.
And speaking of how God deals with humanity, our source document points us to a pivotal moment in the Old Testament.
Exodus chapter 34.
Verses 6 and 7. This is arguably the most important passage for understanding who God actually is.
It truly is. In fact, it is the most quoted verse within the Bible itself.
Wow, really?
Other biblical authors, prophets, poets, kings, they constantly refer back to it. It is essentially God's self-revelation.
It's his ID card.
His ID card. Moses asks to see God's glory, and God passes by and proclaims his own name and character.
And what does he say?
The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness.
Let's look closely at that specific phrase, slow to anger.
Okay.
As we study this deeply, we have to realize this isn't just describing God's emotional state as if he's just trying to keep his temper in check.
Precisely. Slow to anger is a strategic, deliberate delay of justice.
A strategic delay.
God's anger at evil, at injustice, at the way human beings destroy each other is entirely real and completely just.
Because he is holy.
But it is surrounded and mediated by his infinite patience.
Okay.
If God were to immediately execute the perfect, unyielding justice that human rebellion deserves the moment a crime is committed, the human race would end today.
Right on the spot.
Therefore, every single day that the sun rises, every single day that we wake up and draw breath, is, in itself, an act of primordial mercy.
Just living as mercy.
He deliberately delays justice to give us time to turn around, to repent, and to return to him.
And the text says he's abounding in this mercy.
Abounding. It is not a finite reservoir that we can drain dry if we make too many mistakes.
It's an infinite ocean.
It changes the way you read the entire Bible.
It really does. We usually think of the Old Testament as a book of pure judgment.
A lot of people do.
But when we look at the very first stories in the book of Genesis, through this lens of delay, justice, and compassion, we see something entirely different. Let's look at the Garden of Eden.
Okay.
When Adam and Eve rebelled, they were expelled from the garden, and a terrifying flaming sword was placed at the entrance to guard the way back.
Which seems like harsh judgment. For centuries, people have read that purely as a harsh, punitive banishment.
But looking closer, it was an act of profound cosmic mercy.
Oh, so.
If they had been allowed to stay in the garden in their newly fallen, corrupted, spiritually broken state, and they had eaten from the tree of life, they would have been trapped.
Trapped in their sin.
Living forever in a state of eternal death, decay, and separation from God.
Wow.
The expulsion actually protected them from an eternal catastrophe.
That completely flips the script.
And the text also notes that God himself made them clothing from animal skins to cover their shame.
Showing his tender, paternal care for them even as they entered a harsh, unforgiving world.
And what about the story of Cain? He commits the very first murder in human history.
He kills his own brother, Abel, out of pure jealousy.
The demands of justice in that moment were absolute.
Blood was crying out from the ground.
Cain is driven out as a restless fugitive. But when Cain cries out in terror, realizing that without the protection of his family, anyone who finds him will kill him in retaliation, God responds with mercy.
What does he do?
He places a mark on Cain.
Culturally, we often use the phrase the mark of Cain to mean a brand of shame or guilt.
Right.
But the biblical text tells us it was a boundary of divine protection.
Protection.
It was a warning to others against unchecked violence. God was actively merciful to the very first murderer, ensuring his life was preserved.
We see this incredible forbearance with Noah, too.
The flood.
The flood is often viewed as the ultimate judgment on a deeply wicked, violent world,
But even in that, God preserves a remnant in the ark.
giving humanity a second chance.
And the rainbow placed in the sky afterward is a permanent cosmic sign of his long-term forbearance.
The promise. It is a visual promise to restrain his ultimate justice and never destroy the earth in that manner again.
And consider the narrative of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Another story of judgment.
But before the judgment falls on those deeply wicked, oppressive cities, we see Abraham standing before God, engaged in what looks like a negotiation.
Abraham says, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people? What if there are 40? What if there are 10?
He bargains him down.
God agrees to spare the entire wicked city if even 10 righteous people can be found.
That's amazing.
It reveals the incredible intercessory potential of mercy. God's heart is so bent toward compassion that he is willing to withhold well-deserved judgment on the many for the sake of a tiny faithful few.
As the biblical narrative moves out of Genesis and into the history of the nation of Israel, this mercy becomes deeply covenantal.
It shapes their entire national history.
Look at the sweeping epic of Joseph,
He is betrayed, thrown into a pit, and sold into slavery by his own brothers.
his own blood. He suffers for years in a foreign dungeon based on a false accusation. Eventually, through God's providence, he rises to become the second most powerful man in the entire empire of Egypt.
The climax of that story is breathtaking.
When his brothers come to him years later, starving due to a famine and begging for food, they do not recognize him.
And Joseph has the absolute legal right to destroy them.
He has the military power of Egypt at his back and the historical justification to execute them on the spot for what they did to him.
But he chooses mercy.
He weeps, he reveals his identity, he forgives them, and he provides for their families.
This shows us that mercy has the unique, divine power to heal deep, generational, historical wounds.
It can reconcile entirely broken families and communities that justice alone would only destroy.
Then there is the deeply moving story of King David and Mephibosheth,
Mephibosheth was the grandson of King Saul.
David's former enemy.
Furthermore, Mephibosheth was crippled in both feet due to a childhood accident.
And in the ancient Near East, standard, ruthless political practice dictated that a newly crowned king should immediately track down and execute every single surviving member of the rival dynasty.
To prevent any future uprisings,
So when David's men find Mephibosheth, he is undoubtedly terrified.
he falls on his face before David, expecting the executioner's sword.
But David actively sought him out not to kill him, but to show him his zerd.
Covenantal loving kindness.
David remembered a promise he'd made years prior to Mephibosheth's father, Jonathan.
And what does David do?
David restores all of his family's ancestral land, provides servants to farm it, and invites this crippled, marginalized descendant of his enemy to dine at his own royal table for the rest of his life.
It is mercy without any political obligation.
But perhaps the most extreme, almost uncomfortable example of Old Testament mercy is King Manasseh.
This man was unbelievably wicked.
Unbelievably. The historical texts say he rebuilt pagan altars, practiced sorcery, and literally sacrificed his own children in the fire to false gods.
It's terrific.
He filled the streets of Jerusalem with innocent blood. Eventually, God's protection lifts, and he is captured by the Assyrians, put in a ring in bronze shackles, and dragged off to Babylon.
He hits the absolute bottom of human existence.
Yet, in his deep distress, he humbled himself greatly and prayed to God. He genuinely repented.
And the staggering reality is that God heard his plea.
God answered his cry for mercy and restored him to his kingdom in Jerusalem.
It is a reality that almost offends our sense of justice.
It does. It proves that absolutely no one, no matter how dark their past, no matter how egregious or evil their crimes is, beyond the reach of divine mercy, if they truly, genuinely repent and cry out for it.
Which brings us perfectly to the story of Jonah.
Jonah's story highlights what we might call the scandal of compassion.
The scandal of mercy is that it is often deeply frustrating, even infuriating to us when it is applied to our enemies.
We love mercy when we are the ones receiving it.
We demand justice when others offend us. Jonah fled his prophetic mission to warn the city of Nineveh precisely because he knew God's ID card from Exodus 34.
He knew God was gracious and compassionate.
Jonah wanted Nineveh, a brutal, violent, historical enemy of Israel, to burn to the ground.
When they repented in sackcloth and ashes, and God spared them, Jonah was furious.
He sat outside the city and pouted.
But God gently, firmly reminded Jonah that his compassion extends even to wicked, ignorant enemies who don't know their right hand from their left.
That tension, that radical expansion of compassion, brings us to the New Testament, to the ultimate incarnation of mercy.
Jesus Christ.
Everything we have discussed so far, the withholding of punishment, the deep maternal compassion, the covenant loyalty, the majestic pardoning of enemies.
It all takes on physical flesh and blood in the person of Jesus.
There is a story in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, that captures this dynamic brilliantly.
The woman caught in adultery.
The religious leaders, the experts in the law, drag a woman who has been caught in the very act of adultery.
They throw her down in the dust, right in front of Jesus in the middle of the temple courts.
This wasn't about justice for them.
No, it was a carefully laid political trap.
The ancient law of Moses demanded strict justice for this crime, execution by stoning.
If Jesus looked at her and said, "Let her go," he would be openly breaking the law of God, proving he was a false prophet.
But if he said, "Stone her," he would lose his entire reputation for mercy, compassion, and welcoming sinners.
It was the ultimate, seemingly impossible tension between absolute justice and profound mercy.
The crowd is standing there, rocks in their hands, waiting for him to make a mistake.
And what does Jesus do?
He doesn't panic.
He stoops down and simply begins to write in the dust with his finger in utter silence.
The silence must have been deafening.
Finally, he stands up and delivers a masterpiece of divine wisdom that cuts straight to the heart.
He says, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her."
And slowly, the text says, starting with the older man who had lived long enough to know the dark secrets of their own hearts, they drop their stones.
You can hear the thud of the rocks hitting the pavement.
One by one, they turn and walk away, until it is just Jesus and the woman left alone in the courtyard.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, when we look at this scene, we realize something profound about who Jesus is.
That's that.
As the only sinless person in that entire courtyard, Jesus was the absolutely only one uniquely, legally qualified to execute perfect justice.
He was the only one who actually had the moral right to pick up a stone.
But he looks at her and perfectly balances mercy and holiness. He asks, "Has no one condemned you?"
She replies, "No one, sir."
And Jesus says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more."
He preserves her dignity, he entirely withholds the legal punishment she earned, and he calls her forward into a transformed, holy life.
And that tension between justice and mercy, the tension of how God can forgive guilty people, finds its ultimate cosmic resolution on the cross. The cross is the definitive answer to the divine dilemma. How can a perfectly just, holy God simply forgive guilty, rebellious people without violating his own justice?
Because a good judge cannot just sweep violent crimes under the rug and remain a good judge.
Sin has a cost. So in an act of unfathomable, universe-altering mercy, God takes the punishment upon himself.
Jesus, the sinless Son, absorbs the full, terrifying weight of the justice that humanity deserved.
Because of that horrific, beautiful sacrifice, the terrifying throne of cosmic judgment is transformed forever into a throne of grace for anyone who believes.
Because we have received such an infinite, costly mercy, Jesus makes it abundantly clear that we are ethically mandated to reproduce it in our own lives.
We cannot just consume it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the staggering math in the parable of the unforgiving servant from Matthew chapter 18.
The math is wild.
A servant is brought before a king. He owes the king 10,000 talents.
A talent was a massive unit of money, roughly equivalent to 20 years' wages for a day laborer.
So 10,000 talents is an astronomical sum.
We are talking about billions and billions of dollars in modern terms.
It would take a common laborer roughly 270,000 years to earn that much.
It is designed to represent an infinite, completely unpayable debt of human sin against a holy God.
The servant falls on his knees and begs for patience.
The king, moved with deep pity, doesn't just give him more time.
No, he completely, entirely cancels the multi-billion-dollar debt. He wipes the slate clean.
But the shocking twist of the parable is that this same servant, who has just been forgiven an infinite debt, immediately walks outside.
He finds a co-worker who owes him 100 denarii.
Which is about 3 months' wages.
It is a real debt, certainly, but absolutely nothing compared to billions.
And what does he do? He physically grabs the man, chokes him, and throws him into a harsh debtor's prison until the tiny debt is paid.
When the king finds out about this complete failure of compassion, he is furious, and he reinstates the massive debt, handing the wicked servant over to the jailers.
The takeaway for the mature believer is incredibly stark, and it should shake us.
What is the takeaway?
It is spiritually, fundamentally impossible to claim that you love God and have received his forgiveness while simultaneously harboring a bitter, unforgiving heart toward others.
Receiving the infinite bleeding mercy of the cross absolutely mandates that we reproduce mercy in our human relationships.
And it goes beyond just forgiving offenses when people hurt us.
Look at the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Jesus shows us that true, active mercy crosses social, religious, and cultural boundaries to meet human needs wherever they are found.
The Samaritan, traveling on a dangerous road, found a Jewish man beaten and bleeding in the ditch.
Culturally, they were sworn historical enemies.
But the Samaritan didn't ask about his theology or his politics.
He bandaged his physical wounds, put him on his own animal, paid for his medical care at an inn, and showed mercy without borders.
So as we bring all of these ancient words, stories, and theologies together, how does this actually manifest practically in our daily lives today?
How do we walk this out tomorrow morning? Well, practically speaking, choosing to forgive is an act of mercy that actually physically heals the giver.
Physically heals.
It is fascinating that modern scientific studies note that choosing to forgive someone who has wronged you actually reduces your blood pressure, lowers your baseline anxiety, and decreases rates of depression.
Harboring bitterness is physically toxic.
Mercy is quite literally good for your soul and your physical body.
And we can see this in so many everyday actions. Showing mercy today might look like taking a Saturday to donate your time or resources to a local food bank to help those who are struggling.
It might mean standing up and defending a student or a coworker who is being marginalized or bullied.
It means practicing that divine slowness to anger in your daily conversations.
Choosing not to snap back when someone is rude to you in traffic or at the store.
But instead looking for the hurting, exhausted heart that is hiding behind those hurtful words.
As we synthesize everything we've explored today, the original languages, the parables, the cross, the daily application, we can summarize the journey of the believer in 3 words.
Recognition, reception, and reproduction.
First, we must have the clear recognition that God is fundamentally, overwhelmingly compassionate.
Second, we must actively participate in the reception of that mercy by humbling ourselves and accepting the sacrifice of Jesus.
And third, having received it, we are called to the daily reproduction of that mercy, extending radical, boundary-breaking compassion to the broken world around us.
As we wrap up, we want to encourage you. In these end times, it is so vital that you adhere to the pure word of God. Do not be swayed by the traditions of men which the Lord Jesus so disliked. Cling to his pure, merciful word.
And I would like to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you go about your week.
A final thought.
If the cross is where God's perfect justice and perfect mercy kiss, then every time you choose to forgive someone who has deeply wronged you, you are offering the world a tiny, living reflection of that exact same cross. Who in your life is waiting for you to step down from the judge's bench, take off your robe, and pay their fine?
What a profound, searching question to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We hope you carry that soothing oil of compassion into every interaction you have this week. Grace and peace to you.